Good morning, broadcasters. 360 Seconds News and Commentary for Broadcast Professionals is on the air. I'm Maria Kholodova from TKT. Let's discuss the latest technological news with our respected experts, Philip Grossman and Ann Seidler. Don't forget to give the program a like. So first, Red Digital Camera has introduced the Super 35 version of its flagship product, the V-Raptor. The AK RHINO S35 is armed with a sensor that is a bit smaller than the Red Komodo but offers more resolution. The camera is capable of shooting in 8K at up to 120 frames per second, all while keeping its original compact and lightweight camera body. So Philip, tell me a little bit more about this model.
Sure. So, for transparency, I'm a red shooter. I love red. The first Komodo was actually, the color was named after me. They make fantastic cameras, and it's their R3D compressed raw codec that really sets them apart. So this particular camera was a little bit of a surprise. Jared had announced that they were going to come out with a Super 35 version of the Raptor. So the original Raptor is a full frame version. They now have since released a Raptor XL, which is an all-in-one unit, primarily aimed at rental houses and large motion pictures. And then they announced the Super 35 model. There's been a big push within the cinema camera world to go to full frame, although there seems to be a little bit of a pushback of sticking with Super 35 and sort of balancing both worlds. I preferably for still images, 35 is what I full frame, but for motion, Super 35 is perfect. So it's a really interesting camera. Now, this is a limited release that's going to help the World Wildlife Fund, I believe, as well. And what really kind of surprised me is when they came out with it as the Super 35, it's still doing 120 frames per second in 8K. I would have thought personally that they would have kept it at 60 and sort of had that lineup with the Raptor being the 120 frame per second version. So that was a little bit of a surprise. It does not have a global shutter, but it has an extremely fast refresh rate on the sensor, nearing what would be considered a global shutter performance. So the jury's still out on that. We'll have to see the samples of it. But in general, I'm happy to see them expanding what's known as the DSMC3 line. So it's the third generation of the digital stills motion camera product line. So it's great to see that. I'm excited to see what becomes of, say, the Komodo in this DSMC3 world, and Red their patent has been extended on the R3D, which I think is fantastic. So it's exciting time in the broadcast cinema camera world.
Great. Now moving on, the first Sennheiser EW-DX devices are shipping in North America, EMEA, Japan, and Singapore. Available products include the EW-DX EM2 two-channel receiver, the handheld transmitter with or without programmable mute switch, and the body pack transmitter. The latter also comes in two versions, either with a special 3-pin mic connector or a 3.5 millimeter jack for mics or instrument cables. So Mary, tell me about this solution.
So there is a worldwide shortage of audio engineers, and that gets into this. This Sennheiser solution is extremely easy to use. One thing we're always searching for when we do remotes is, oh my gosh, we've got to send an engineer with it. We don't with this. Number one, it's easy to set up. You've got the auto scan, so you can set up the channels automatically or automatically. It also uses their own proprietary codec, which I'm fascinated by, called CPAC, which is a low latency codec. But the other great thing about this is you can control everything from an app. And that gets into our shortage of engineers, because one engineer or technician can be anywhere in the world and set things up for the end users. Philip, have you had a chance to play around with this type of equipment much recently?
I haven't played around with the Sennheiser with this particular model. I have some of my own Sennheisers. I have some Sony packs. It's really interesting to see how, as you pointed out with the app, that things are getting simpler to use than they used to be. Connecting and setting channels for wireless and working on wireless interference used to be, the bane of my existence when doing it. And I'm sure audio engineers suffered even more. So it's interesting to see that they've simplified the system. From what I understand and reading the technology. They're universal systems, which means I don't know if it was 5-8 years ago, we had this big shakeup where they were reducing and repacking and moving radio frequencies around, and so you had radios that used to be available in the U.S. that can no longer be used in the U.S., or radios in Europe that can no longer be used in Europe because of the frequency codes. I believe this one, and it may be as a result of being able to use these apps and knowing where you're located, helps limit that issue on what legal frequencies you can use within each of the various areas. And if I read correctly, there's 100 or 1,000 channels simultaneously on these systems, which really make them, quite universal for anywhere from a small production to something that's, stadium wide or a large movie set. So it's interesting to see there's been a push to move away from wireless in some cases, and now we're heading back with newer technology. So I think it's a great addition to the market space.
All right, well, that's all the time we have for today. Many thanks to our experts, Philip and Mary, and don't forget to comment on the news that we've discussed. See you next Monday at the same time. Goodbye.